Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody. Welcome to Heartland Farm. We're a couple of minutes late today, starting with the Toy and the Real McCoy. We moved it up an hour, and in respect of the Daytona 500 television show, it'll start at 2:30. I know a lot of you motorheads are going to be watching that. I hope to be, maybe enjoying a cold adult beverage by that time. So thanks for joining us once again, episode 7 of the Toy and the Real McCoy. I'll get the housework done first. For those of you that share it, we throw your name in a hat for a drawing every week to get a hat from our John Deere dealership sent to you, a hat and a t-shirt. Make sure when we let you know you won, you tell us your size, and we got them from little tiny to Omar the tent maker size, so we'll be able to take care of all of you. So if you would share our videos, we sure do appreciate it, and we thank you for tuning in. So,
we had 10,000 video views on our last video.
Thanks to you. 10,000 is amazing. So this week we're changing it up a little. Instead of tractors, we're switched over to trucks at the request of my wife Jane, who is the most patient lady on this earth to put up with this hobby of toy tractors and toy trucks and real tractors and real trucks and all these barns full of collectibles that we've put together in the years that we've been married. So Jane requested that we do a special this week on the International Scout. So many of you know what an International Scout is. For the younger set, they may be just something you've heard about. But if not, we're going to do that today. And there's probably a lot of you watching that may even have owned an International Scout, which was built as a competitor for the CJ series of Jeeps. It was designed to be, now they call them a sport utility vehicle, which is exactly what it was. You used it as a utility vehicle. Sometimes they were a second car, the family truck. Sometimes they were used around the farm for rough terrain. Forest rangers had them, forest services all over the United States. They were a true utilitarian vehicle, and there's a lot of great International Scout stories out there. And any of you want to post them, we're always interested in hearing them. There's Scout aficionados will arguably tell you that the last serious four-wheel drive was built in 1980, and that would be the International Scout. Introduced in 1961 by the International Harvester Company and built until 1980, there were many of them made. I'm going to share with you a picture that was a gift from a dear friend of mine. He buys negatives on eBay, and when he finds something that he thinks I'm going to love, he brings it to me. And being a great equipment historian and love of International Harvester and all that company has been over the years, I'm showing you the dealer introduction photograph of a dealer drive-away at Melrose Park where the International Harvester crawlers were being built. This was the new TD15 being introduced in 1961, telling you it can be done in 61, the year the Scout was introduced. And there, although they're industrial dealers, they were using a Scout with big PA speakers on it to show off the new, for that year, Scout, which was the Scout Model 80. Those little trucks came out with a 4-cylinder, 152 cubic inch engine, which was half of the 304 V8. They also offered the 304 V8, and in later years went on to offer the 345 and even larger engines in the Scout. We'll get to the real Scout here in just a minute. While I'm facing this way, I want to show you one of the toys before we get to the real McCoy. This is a toy set from the 1980s, the early 80s, and this came out of the personal collection of Fred Ertl Jr., who at the time was the president of the Ertl Toy Company in Dyersville, Iowa. I've been able to meet Fred when he was still alive. He's departed now, and we bought a lot of toys out of his personal collection when they came up for auction. Fred was a gentleman. His family sold ownership in the company in 1967, but he stayed on as president of the Ertl Company until the early 90s. And this is just one of many Ertl pressed steel toy Scouts that they offered. They offered them with a variety of things. This one just happens to be a Scout with a boat on a trailer. We've got Scouts out of his collection with a horse trailer and a horse and all sorts of other ones, including jacked up Scout Bajas and Scout Rallies and just all kinds of neat stuff. Nice toy, new in the box. A privilege to have in our collection. And once again, we're welcome to have you out here if you want to come on a Sunday and look at our toys here at Heartland Farm. We're not hoarders, we're collectors, so we love to share them with people. Over here we have just a small amount of my Scout memorabilia, which I'm going to go through one by one, but I'm showing this off specially. This is the first toy Scout that I ever got. My dad bought me this at Clark's department store. It was $3, and I remember having to asked twice if there's any way I could get it, and he bought it for me. It's been played with some, but I truly loved it. I've saved it all these years. I keep it in a display case in the house. And I'm showing this off for my friend Debbie McDuff, who just posted on Facebook earlier that her uncle had a Scout that was robin's egg blue with a white top. And I don't know, but this might be something similar to your uncle's Scout, Debbie. I hope you enjoy it. That was the surprise I had for you. International Scout has such a long story that look at the size of this book. I got this as a birthday gift a few years ago. The amazing book. These guys are Scout experts. Just John Glancy is just an amazing authoritarian on international Scouts. And this book's a page turner. So if you ever want to know everything about a Scout, here it is. And we have a second Scout in our collection we may cover another day that is a very special edition that's covered in that book. So the first toy Scout ever made was this little gem right here, made by the Ertl Company. She's pretty basic. The windshield doesn't flip. Oh yeah, the windshield does flip down on it. Just a very basic little die-cast toy made in the early 60s. They made these a variety of colors, and I have 2 or 3 versions of it. You wouldn't believe what that probably $1 toy costs to buy if you find one on eBay or at a toy show today. But the Scout has been loved by all the toy companies and certainly by the population of this country. And others as well. Johnny Lightning has this off-road version, and this is available in I don't even know how many different colors. And they've got it with boat trailers and campers behind it and all kinds of things. Scouts are just an amazing little sport utility vehicle. Matchbox, not the 50-cent or $1 Matchboxes, but this scale of Matchbox also did this in a couple of different colors. And they also did a U.S. Postal Service version of it because the mail service in the rural carriers used a lot of international Scouts because they were available with 4-wheel drive. The majority of Scouts were sold with 4-wheel drive. One of my dear friends has a little 2-wheel drive. It's a beautiful little Scout 80. Great little vehicle. They made the Scout 80, then they made the 800, and then they went to the Scout 2, which was that Ertl toy that I showed you out of Fred's collection. That's the Scout 2, the more square-looking ones. Back in the early 60s, True Scale Toys, which was out of Rockford, Illinois, offered this set right here. And this showed you some of the utilitarian measures of the International Scout. Here's a little Scout 80 with a clamp-on snowplow. You can have the sport top roof or the travel top roof. The doors are removable. You can put them on, take them off. I've got found that in Dyersville at the National Farm Toy Show years ago, and I'm kind of privileged to have it. Here's one put together with the travel top and the doors and the snowplow. Just a beautiful little toy. American made, you know, not the detail you get out of the little Chinese fingers today, but you know something? A truly beautiful toy. And I had a love for international toys because the John Deere toys never had a model number on them. The international tractors always had the model number, and the Scout had the label, and it had this all-wheel drive plaque, which was common on international Scouts if they were 4-wheel drive, on the Lodestar series of trucks if they were factory 4-wheel drive, on the pickups when they were 4-wheel drive, and certainly up through the 56 and the early 66 series tractors. If they came down the assembly line with a front wheel assist added, they got that chrome all-wheel drive emblem, of which I've got a few in my Scout display case. I've got sew-on Scout patches that I've enjoyed collecting over the years. I really have a love for Scouts, and I always wanted one. But I'll tell you what gets away from me on international Scouts. They rust before you can collect them. I collect the 2 brands that rust the fastest, Dodge and International, and there's a reason why Scouts rusted so fast. I had that explained to me. Here's a piece of Scout chrome. It's probably the last piece out of some poor old Scout 80 somewheres. They rusted pretty bad. There's a Scout hat pin as well. Another nice piece of Scout memorabilia. This is a Matchbox Scout Baja right here. And we got more patches and whatnot. We're going through that stuff all day. So the boys and I were to John Deere meeting out in Troy, Ohio. Oh golly, 7, 8 years ago. And we went a day early to go to the International Scout and Light Truck Nationals. And there was a gathering of Scout light line pickups and international Scouts, and a lot of enthusiastic owners, and a just amazing amount of knowledge there. A lot of people to rub elbows with and talk Scouts and international trucks with, and we had the time of our life that day. So I was buying some pins or some memorabilia from a gentleman over in the display tent, and he had some beautiful stuff, and it was stuff that only a factory employee would get. There were security guard badges and things like that. So I got talking to him, and he turns out he worked at Fort Wayne, Indiana at the International Harvester plant where they built the International Scout. And we got talking about the rust issue. I said, you know, I've wanted one of these buggies forever, but I've never been able to get one that wasn't already going back to dust. And he says, son, there's a real easy explanation for that. He said, you know, International Harvester had their own steel mill. I said, yes, I do. And he said, we used to get rolled coils of steel in on a daily basis. And the big Fort Wayne factory was built kind of in a semicircle. The trucks delivered out into the middle, and they just unloaded coil on coil and coil of steel out of the IH rolling mill. And which incidentally was called Wisconsin Steel. It was owned by the International Harvester Company. And he said they had sat out there sometimes for years and years and years. And of course, there's always a film of oil put on coiled steel so it won't start rusting. Well, here it was out in the open air, and the middle had coils of steel that God knows might have been in there for 4 years, and the outer ring had the coils of steel that just came in recently. Well, they'd always tried to use the older stuff first, as is good in manufacturing, and that stuff had the protective oil washed off of it by the time it got into the stamping facility to make hoods and fenders and doors and roofs and all that stuff at the Scout plant. And he said the rust was started long before we ever put any paint on these babies. So if you got one that isn't rusty, he says you got a good one. And I guess that goes with any of us that collect international stuff, Scouts, light line pickups. You know that rust kind of gets ahead of them real bad, especially out here where we live. So that I showed you my first Scout toy. I just unpackaged this one today. This one was made by Nylon. And some people may want to argue that this is a Bronco, but I can assure you that it was meant to be an International Scout. And you could tell because it has a little tow body on it, which often at small service stations, they had a Scout to plow snow, and they had a little tow body on it to tow cars in a short distance. So this one I just unpackaged today. It's a really nice surviving example of a Nylon Scout from about 1964. And a fun little toy to have, and that one will be welcomed into the display case real soon. Let's take a walk around our real Scout. This is a Scout Rally in 1979. We've only owned it for about 4 years now. She's got about 100,000 miles on her. She's been well taken care of. As you can see, it's got the original plaid interior, the original door liners. Kind of a cute little vehicle. Dave wants me to take the roof off of it, and I'm not going to be breathing by the time I allow that. So when I die, he's probably going to take the roof off and wig it out some way. This is equipped with a 345 V8 engine and a 4-speed transmission. It's got a Rockwell transfer case with high and low range in it. It's got some shag carpet mats to protect the recarpet. That isn't the original carpet in our little Scout here. But she's a real doll baby for us. And with a 345 V8, that really makes this little truck have some snap. It's pretty amazing. The motor's well taken care of. Notice the International on the valve covers. I like those little details. That stuff always makes me happy. This truck is, although it's got miles on it, is a very, very, very nice survivor. We'll give you the frontal view of her here in just a minute. I'm going to put the hood down because it really shows a lot better with the hood down as we open the door and go around to the other side.
David Getty asked what were all the engine options they had for him.
152, 304, 345, and 400. Oh, I missed the most significant one. The Nissan Turbo Diesel. I'm still in hunt of one of those. The Nissan Turbo Diesel was in the final years of the Scout 2. We have a 1980 Scout. I've always been in hopes of finding an 80 the last year with a Nissan Diesel. We've missed quite a few of them that have come up for auction. They just get beyond what we could pay. But one day we're going to own a Scout 2 with a Nissan Diesel in it.
Jason Beecher said it's almost Dale's Chalmers orange. Well, there's a good example of it right behind it.
But you know something? We might as well show that 220 because I'm going to show it on the Alice page later because today is 220 and it's 220 day on the Alice Chalmers Facebook page. So there's our 220 as well. And here's the face of our 79 Scout Rally with a 345 V8 in it. A wonderful, wonderful little truck. You might find us at the ice cream parlor in it from time to time. In the 1970s, competition was tough. The Dodge Ram Charger was out there. the Ford Bronco, the big Bronco at that time, the Chevrolet Blazer, and the sport utility market was taking root. And there was an awful lot of marketing going on. And you had the big three, Chrysler, Ford, and General Motors. GMC, of course, made their Jimmy as well, that were vying for all that business. And here was International, which made a hell of a good product, but kind of in fourth. They really were not a company marketing to suburbanites like they wanted to be. They set up some Scout-only dealers. Those of you from our area will remember that there was one out on Route 29 just before you get into Johnstown that was perhaps an AMC dealer and also had an International Scout contract. And also in Granville, McCoy Motors was an AMC dealer, and they also had an International Scout contract so that you could buy them there. My International truck dealer, Delury Sales and Service, where we buy our big trucks, there's a lot of boys in that family, and old Johnny Delury, the dad, let the boys each have one to drive as a personal vehicle while they were in high school. But the deal was they had to get them sold before they rusted through. And according to Jeff, that was sometimes a bit of a challenge because they did have that stigma of starting to rust before they ever got to the dealer's lot, which is sad, but it is what it is. Another little anecdote, my friend Scott Lufkin over in Argyle tells the story of riding with his dad Carl plowing in the catheter plant parking lot over in North Argyle and having the window down on these cold snowy nights. And he said, "Dad, why don't you roll the window up?" He said, "Because I spent half the time outside pulling the pin angle, a manual angle plow, so there's no sense going in and out of the cold. We'll just stay cold and we'll get the plowing done that way." So these little trucks have earned their keep for a lot of people, a lot of ways. If you know where there's one and you can save it, I recommend that you do, because they stopped making them in 1980, and that was a long time ago. So back to marketing to the suburbanites. Here was International advertising on television, something that they were not familiar with. Their business was heavy trucks, construction equipment, farm equipment. Television advertising wasn't what they needed, and there was no RFD channel back in those days. They were heavy into magazines, trade shows, county fairs, state fairs, and word of mouth. So in their TV advertising, they had a little jingle, and I've always been kind of a fan of it because I've loved Scouts my whole life. We had a display at the fair in the toy building with our Scouts one time, and my wife Jane made the little jingle up for me. And the song was "Scout the America, Others Pass By." She's challenged me to sing it for you here today, but I only sing in the shower. Dave was going to bring over his super soaker and give me a shower so I'd sing, but we've all decided against that because it's colder than anything today. So anyways, if one of you, besides sharing this, if one of you sings the jingle and you do a respectable job of the Scout jingle, we'll send you a hat and a t-shirt too. Go tune in. The Daytona 500's coming on at 2:30. Thanks for spending part of your Sunday afternoon with us here at Heartland Farm. And once again, we ask you to please share our video, and we'll see you next week at our normal time of 3 o'clock. Thanks a lot. God bless you. Keep your chin up and stay safe.